Welcome to the Friends of Fantasy Benefits Baseball Podcast. I am Justin Mason, lead fantasy writer and analyst of friendsoffantasybenefits.com. Joining me on this episode is Dave McDonald. Dave, it has been too long, my friend. How you doing?
It has been way too long. I'm doing good. I thought you'd forgotten about me. I get all these messages from people saying, "Where are you on pods? How come you and Justin aren't doing your pod anymore? I need help setting my lineups." And I'm like, I know. Reach out to Justin, send him a DM, and that's kind of why we're here tonight, right? You got a DM or two?
I got a DM or two, and honestly, I've just been missing talking to you, right?
I know.
I enjoy sitting down with you on Monday nights and bullshitting and talking about baseball and yelling at each other. I feel like my blood pressure has not been high enough recently, so I just needed to get that going again.
Spore been slacking on that end, huh? He's not getting you going like he used to.
No, I mean he does, but that's only 3 times a week. I need another night.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. And just a little heads up for people, Justin and I can't really figure out what's going on, but there seems to be a little bit of a delay here, so we might be taking a slightly longer to respond to each other than normal. But you guys are probably listening to us on 2.5x anyway, so probably won't even notice.
Yeah, and I can hopefully fix it in post if it's a bigger issue when I get to the editing. So, but before we jump in, I want to remind everybody where you can reach on social media, plug anything you got going on. I don't know if you have anything going on.
Yeah, we don't really know what the hell's going on in each other's lives anymore. So, yeah, just the usual, trying to get Jake to do high stakes heat, trying to get you to do FWFB, and working and running the fantasy teams so far. So that's been where the work's been this year so far, replacing injured hitters mostly.
And you can find me on all social media platforms, Justin Mason FWFB. I'm rated 4 times a week at Fantasy Pros and 4 to 5 times a week at Fangraphs. Plus, I do the Sleeper in the Bus podcast. So busy as always, and trying to manage less teams this year, which has been kind of nice. But a few of my teams have just started out so dog shit. Oh man, it's been my main event team is starting to turn it around.
Well, let's see for later in the show. We'll talk about how we're doing and everything, and I want to hear about what's been going wrong.
What hasn't been going wrong is the problem. We'll get to that. Let's jump into some news. We'll start with the news that kind of was the impetus of having this conversation tonight, which is Ryan Weathers to the 60-day IL with a lat strain. You kind of knew this was going to happen eventually, right? I mean, Weathers is a guy who has never been able to throw a ton of innings at the major league level. He looked great when he was on the mound, then got weirdly hit in the head the other day when during warmups. Are you just immediately dropping Ryan Weathers anywhere you got him?
Yeah, unfortunately. And granted, I didn't, and that was part of the reason I, like you said, the lack of innings. He's kind of been around since 2021. He's never hit 100 innings before. But I did think he could be helpful. I've been on the Ryan Weathers train the last few years. But was I going to spend $250 or whatever, $200+ on him? No. It sucks, but they immediately put him on the 60-day IL, so that tells me that yeah, he's a drop for this year, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, if he's going to miss at least 60 days, that's 2 months of the remaining season. So at earliest, we're talking about mid-August, and that's if he comes back.
If everything goes perfectly.
That soon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think he's a pretty easy drop at this point of the season. Michael King first reported as he slept on his shoulder funny. Now it sounds like it could be a short-term absence, maybe a longer-term absence. Who knows? It's been about 2 weeks. He hasn't started throwing yet. How worried are you on Michael King?
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's just one after another with teams and players telling us one thing and then it actually being something else. And this is why I always say, use common sense and injury timelines. Don't listen to them when they say that, it's precautionary, he's probably going to be fine and all this stuff. And rarely is that the case. I don't know what is the shoulder injury. Do we even know yet what the injury is? I mean, I have no idea. Is it a strain? Is it sore, stiff? I think they said stiffness, right?
Yeah, they said Michael King is still resting along with Padres medical staff is just gathering information about his injury.
Yeah,
a holding pattern is what
that
they
doesn't
said.
sound great.
That doesn't tell us anything.
No, that's not good. That's like you go to the doctor and you're like, all these things are wrong, and you're like, can you fix me? And they're like, well, we don't know what's wrong yet. And it's like, okay, well, you can't fix it until you know what the hell's wrong. So that's not a great sign. I don't know. It's a question mark, and I don't know if the team knows, and I don't know if they'll tell us if they know. But clearly, it wasn't just he slept on his shoulder funny, because they were like, at first it was he'll be back soon. We don't even think an IL stint is needed, and here we are over 2 weeks later. So,
yeah, it's really weird. But this is also something I was a little worried about with King, just in general, especially last year, because he was transitioning from a reliever to a starter, and he just never put on that kind of workload. And all of a sudden, he puts on this massive workload, and we just don't know how someone's going to respond. Some guys are able to do it, no problem. Look at what Carlos Carrasco did, transitioning from the bullpen to being a starter, and it worked out really, really well. We've also seen numerous other guys, CJ Wilson, top of my mind, like as a guy who's like, hey, this is a really good reliever. And then as a starter, he was good for a minute, but then he dealt with a lot of injuries. So this is kind of a bummer. I think you're just in a holding pattern until we get more information. But this definitely is discouraging, to say the least.
Yeah, he added 70 innings last year, going from a reliever to a starter. And I didn't have him, red flagged or anything. Like he honestly was a guy I was fine with trading or fine with drafting. But you do know that anytime you jump up and have that big of a workload coming from being a reliever, it's always somewhat of a risk.
Yeah. Logan Gilbert scheduled to return this week. He was originally supposed to have a 2-start, but they want him to do another rehab start after his velocity was down in his last rehab start. I got a lot of questions about Gilbert today in my chat, and people were a little surprised when I was like, I'm pretty scared about Gilbert, even though probably because I was super high on him coming into the season. But anytime you've got these kind of injuries, I'm worried. I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop. And Tommy John to get announced. I'm throwing him in my lineups this week, just because I don't have a lot of options. I lost a lot of guys over the course of the last few weeks. But really, I'm not expecting a ton from Logan Gilbert rest of the way. Where are you at on him?
No, I don't know that he's ever going to pitch in the majors again this year. I really don't, because this was an elbow flexor strain. And if you do a Google or a Twitter search for elbow flexor strain or even Tommy John surgery, the news before the Tommy John surgery is almost always elbow flexor strain. Like, this is the precursor to Tommy John. The number of guys who have an elbow flexor strain and don't end up getting TJ is pretty short. So, they're talking, last time in his minor league rehab outing, his velo was way down. And they're trying to downplay it and all this and that. And, we think, he'll be okay the next time. I highly doubt it. Like, what are they basing that on? Their hopes and wishes, unicorns and rainbows. It's not going to work out, I don't think. I think he's going to need TJ sooner than later. And I think the longer they wait, it's just going to be worse for him. I don't think he's just going to magically be okay. I know I get you can't drop him, but I definitely wouldn't have started him this week, because even if he is back, I don't think it's going to be pretty.
Yeah, I'm in a position in the leagues where I've got him where, like, I didn't have other options.
I think I've seen some of your problems in your league so far.
Actually, the funny thing is, I think the league where I have, or one of the leagues where I have Gilbert is like one of my best leagues.
Oh no!
In TGFBI. No, sorry, no, I don't have Gilbert there. Where do I have Gilbert? Probably one of my auction leagues.
You have too many leagues to keep track of.
I don't even have that many leagues this year. I just can't remember where I have them. But
would your wife agree with that comment?
I mean, she thinks I always have. I mean, I could be in one league and she'd think I had too many leagues. So, I mean, let's just be honest there. So, yeah, no, like I was in a position where like I kind of had to throw him in, and plus like his start at the end of the week was a pretty good matchup. If he had the 2 starts, he would have started versus Arizona at the beginning of the week. I probably would have just sat him and just like thrown in a reliever or something like that.
You should have thrown in a reliever, dude. Like this is gonna be bad. I mean, if he's even back at all, I think it's very likely a 0. I mean, anytime I have a guy who doesn't have a start until Sunday, I automatically look for reasons to sit them, unless it's like a guy who I know they're not going to skip and it's a really good matchup. Because, one rain out, one anything, and that doesn't even happen. But
yeah,
I don't think you're going to want what comes when he comes back. That's the thing. Well, actually, we didn't put it on the rundown, but his another guy who I'm very skeptical for the rest of the year is Bryce Miller. He's got elbow inflammation also. And he's straight up saying how he doesn't know if he's going to be okay. Like he's going to try to pitch through it, but he's basically sounding like it's not looking good. And in a shallow league that I have him in, I already dropped him. So I think Bryce Miller is going to be a pretty clear drop sooner than later.
Oh, okay. No, so where I have Gilbert is in TGFBI. I lost Pablo Lopez. I lost Max Meyer. I lost Shea Langoliers. My only other option to throw into my my lineup this week was going to be Nick Martinez at Detroit.
Yeah, I would have used that.
Detroit's
sucking lately. I actually used Nick Martinez in that matchup, but I get it. It's certainly dangerous, but I mean, Kerry Carpenter could hit 3 bombs off of him. That's a very real possibility, but. Detroit's actually been pretty bad versus righties the last couple of weeks and striking out a lot. So I'm hoping Nick Martinez can take advantage of that.
All right, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. I'll text you later in the week.
Okay.
All right. Pablo Lopez out 8 to 12 weeks with a shoulder injury. I held on to him in a couple leagues. I shouldn't have.
No.
Right? I should have just dropped him.
Yeah, I would say so.
It was just so hard to do. I was just like, I know. I'll drop him next week. It's just there's no worse feeling.
I know, but you don't have to replace him all at once. It's little steps. You take a shot on a guy who's got to, take a Bryce Elder who's got Colorado on the road this week or something like that. And if he eventually doesn't pan out or you want to stream someone else, you pick someone else up. But it's more that you need that spot in your rotation to be productive. It's not that whoever you're going to replace him with has to be Pablo Lopez good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's fair. I mean, it's unfortunate. I do think that I probably should have dropped him. I mean, if he's missing at least 8 weeks, we're talking about, middle of August or beginning of August, because I think, the initial diagnosis came out about a week ago. And if we're talking 12 weeks, we're talking about beginning to middle of September before he's back. And will he be ramped up? Will they even risk it if they're not in the playoff picture at that point?
No.
So I definitely should have. I definitely should have dropped him.
Drop him this week. Drop him this weekend.
I will. It hurts. He was one of my studs on a number of my teams.
And
all right.
Finally came back to get him. Like, this was the reason I was fading Pablo Lopez like several years ago, and like he staved it off for so long.
Nick Kurtz is back. How excited are we about this? I've got Kurtz in a few leagues. I spent the big bucks to get him. He seemed like he was finally starting to turn the corner right before the injury. So I'm hoping he just goes right back to it.
Yeah, that's really what it comes down to. Is he going to get right back to being productive like he was at the end there, or is he going to kind of have to start over? Because you see, Dane Myers comes back a few weeks later from being one of the hottest hitters in baseball to now he's hitting like 8th and 9th and not hitting anything. So I mean, it's only been a couple games, but you're hoping that Kurtz, you can throw him right back in the lineup, and I would totally understand if you did. So yeah, hopefully he gets right back into the swing of things. I don't own him anywhere, So for me, I don't really care what he does, but I hope for your sake that he gets right back to mashing.
Yeah, I'm hoping he gets right back to it. I threw him back in. He's over 3 tonight so far, but one game back. He had a home run in his last rehab start, so feel like he should be back to normal here. And it's going to be really hot very soon in Sacramento, and that ball is going to fly, which is one of the reasons why I'm so excited to get him back, because I think he is going to be a monster. Speaking of prospects, we got a couple more prospects to talk about. Jac Caglianone. He has made his debut. Are you excited? He struggled for the first few games, but seemed to, turn it on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, you just never know how long it's going to take these guys to adjust to the majors. Like Cam Smith had a ton of hype coming into this year, and he's been mediocre at best so far. I mean, you can definitely see him eventually becoming a stud, but it could happen this year. It could happen next year, 2, 3, 4 years down the line. I don't know. And, especially for these big power guys. And granted, Jac Caglianone was not striking out at a big rate. He had like a 20% K rate before coming up. So I think that's a decent sign that he's not going to strike out a ton. But just those big power guys in general, you just never know. Are they going to hit enough in their first, time up? And I don't know, like the underlying stats actually look good. Like he's got a 14.3% barrel rate, 57% hard hit rate, contact rates at 76%, zone contact is at 84.6%. So it's
we love to see that.
His XBA is 343, so basically 100 points above his actual average. So seems like he's getting a little unlucky. Even though his BABIP's 286, which isn't super low. So I don't know. We'll see. He plays in a tough park for power too. I wouldn't assume he's going to be a stud right off the bat. Is what I'll say.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I think I was talking in my chat earlier today, and it was about a different player. But someone asked me about Roki Sasaki and how everybody in the industry was so wrong on him coming over from Japan. And I talked about that the baseball industry, but really the fantasy industry even more so, gets kind of tunnel vision on new guys. Anybody who's new.
Oh, yes.
Whether it's an international signee or a top tier prospect, anytime a new guy enters the league, people go crazy and they forget that there's often an adjustment period for these guys. And this is why, like, Paul and I did an episode of The Sleeper and the Bust about 2 or 3 weeks ago where we talked about all the major fab pickups that average, I think, $80 or more in the main event for the year, and like how they're panning out so far. And I think the conclusion we came to was very rarely is somebody worth triple digits. It's just very rare that these guys are worth this much because the hit rate is so low on these guys, because typically they're massive prospects or closers who are taking over a role, and you just never know how long a closer is going to take over a role. And we're going to talk about this here in a little while as well. And you don't know how these prospects are going to acclimate to the major leagues. I mean, the great example of it is Mike Trout, one of the greatest players of our generation, struggled in his first call-up. If Mike Trout can struggle, anybody can struggle. It's such a jump from the minors to the majors. And I think we've just been really, really lucky in recent years with a number of guys who have made that jump very successfully right out the gate. But we also completely forget about the guys who flop.
Yeah, there's way more guys who flop out of the coming out of the gates than who really take off right away. And the thing is, you just got to keep an eye on them and make sure, like, if they get dropped at some point, that's when they become a good pickup. I'm thinking about last year, Jackson Churio had a really slow start to the year, and then he really picked it up at some point. And I was just trying to look at his situational splits here, so March, April, he had a 68 WRC plus. Then May, he had a 51 WRC plus, even worse. And then June, he kind of clicked and had a 144 WRC plus and really started to take off.
Yeah. I just think that the hit rate on a lot of these guys isn't as high as people want to make it out to be. And plus,
Definitely.
let's be honest, like content is more sexy if we're talking about like, oh, this great prospect's coming up. Just like a great prospect has joined our podcast.
I was wondering how you're going to transition into this. Oh my God.
I should be in bed right now, but I just saw the Twitter DM from Justin. And I was like, all right, I'm going to come on for a little bit.
Excellent. So for those of you who don't know, this is Eric Samulski who just joined us.
I feel somewhat responsible for this actually happening tonight, which is why I was like, I gotta.
You're very responsible. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It probably wouldn't have happened even though I'd been thinking about like, hey, I need to restart the FWFB pod. I've just been lazy or busy, one of the two. So
yeah,
it's great to see you, my friend.
I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be on. I should probably be in bed, but we're gonna chat for a little bit.
Let's do it.
I couldn't.
Well,
wait
we just
to come
finished.
on
Oh, go ahead.
when I heard you were talking about the Earth Leagues, and I was just remembering what Dave said about my pitching staff when I first drafted the team, and how right he wound up being.
Okay.
Just a disaster of a February pitching staff I put together. But what are you gonna do?
Well, you just like you can take shots. You took too many and put them all same types of risk all on the same team. And as Justin knows, you can't do that.
We chatted afterwards too about it's just like recalibrating my 12-team brain to be a 15-team brain in addition to the added injury risk too.
Very different.
So it didn't work out, and we're staring down the barrel right now.
But if we learn something from that, then moving forward we can be better, and that's really what matters the most.
Yeah, I think we have chatted a bunch on Twitter about the starting pitcher injuries this year. I think it's been an interesting year, and I think we've learned. I personally have learned a lot from it too, in terms of I do still believe that risk in starting pitching is inherent, and that there are some guys who are riskier than others for sure, but that there is a major difference in like, hey, Jacob deGrom had 3 starts last year where he looked pretty much like himself. Robbie Ray had 9 starts last year around a hamstring injury where he looked healthy, and so those guys, even though they're quote unquote injury prone, are a little bit less risky this year than drafting the Sandy Alcantaras of the world.
Yeah. Well, what's ironic is that's actually on the rundown later. And both the guys you mentioned are both guys who were perceived as risky, but I didn't think were risky. So I know people are accustomed to me saying I'm off of Jacob deGrom, but this was a year where I actually liked Jacob deGrom. My only thing that I said was expect a lesser version of him. And we have seen just that. Mm-hmm. He's been a lesser version of himself, but if that lesser version can stay healthy, this is a better version of Jacob deGrom. If he can stay healthy at this level, he doesn't need to be, 2020 Jacob deGrom every year. Like we can have a productive Jacob deGrom, but people, in my opinion, were just having unrealistic expectations for him.
Yeah. deGrom, it's like, it's interesting for me. deGrom was somebody where I just wasn't getting him because I wasn't drafting where he was starting pitching where he was going.
Yeah.
But I had no problem with it. And it's funny that like I was fully out on Spencer Strider.
Yep.
Mostly because of where he was going. But I was somehow okay with taking McClanahan and Alcantara. And I think it was like a value conversation in my head, right? They weren't going at the same place that Spencer Strider was going. So like, sure, you take McClanahan as your SP3 and what's the harm? But if it's the same logic and why you believe that Spencer Strider is a risk, then just because that guy's going later doesn't necessarily mean it's a better risk. It just means you're taking that same risk, but at a different part of your draft.
Yeah. For me, they're just the data for coming off of 2 Tommy Johns or a Tommy John and an IV operation. The data is not good. And I get that a lot of them were a while ago. And so people are like, well, maybe the techniques of the surgeries have gotten better and improved the comeback time and all that. But Spencer Strider returned in like less than a year. And I was not buying that he was just going to come back and be okay. Dustin May has looked good, but then Shane McClanahan, not so much. And for me, I play probabilities. So I'd rather just say if I think on the whole it's not going to be good, I'll just avoid all of them unless like someone falls to a crazy point, which they never did because someone's a stand for one of these guys in the league and they're going to take it before me. Yeah. So I just rather get like, okay, I'm fine with missing on one guy to be right on the other 8 or whatever. So that's how I look at it.
Agreed.
Well, I think
sorry, I hijacked your rundown, by the way.
Oh no,
no, not at all. I think too, like the one thing that people don't really talk about enough is the opportunity cost that you give up at the draft table, but also in season, because you're having, like, especially a guy like Spencer Strider, like you knew he was going to be out. Mm-hmm. You're having to hold a dead spot in your roster
right
for a period of time, which means you can't go and bid on the potential guys that might have a breakout that, pop up as easily as someone who doesn't. And I mean, this is coming from someone who made this same mistake with George Kirby. Now, my hope is, Kirby will end up paying off. But I mean, I made the mistake on Kirby, and so far the returns haven't been good on him either.
Yeah, and this is also on the rundown there, but for me, it was George Kirby in one of my mains, and then Sean Manaea in 2 different leagues I held. And again, the opportunity cost was way too high to do that. I think Manaea was going around like pick 220 or something, and might have even been a little higher than that. And, you're taking him over guys like Drew Rasmussen and, Luzardo and Waka and just all kinds of guys, Bubic, just all kinds of guys who you could be helping you in these first couple of months. Now, granted, I thought Manaea would be back in the first 2 to 3 weeks.
Right.
Because it was an oblique. It wasn't an arm injury. But, that I just every year I get mad at myself for occasionally stashing a pitcher that I think will be back quickly, and they never fucking are.
Right. In turf, I still have McClanahan stashed because obviously we drafted before he got hurt. We drafted early in February, so we drafted before the nerve issue. So he was going to be ready at the start of the season. We didn't know how good he was going to be, but he was going to start the year in the rotation. And then it was like, okay, I can keep him because we don't really know. They said it's just nerves. And so like it might, we had such a nebulous timeline of when he was coming back, and he was my one IL stash. And then I held him for so long, and then it's like, okay, now Michael King is also hurt and on that same team. And you're like, now what do I do? I mean, and at least McClanahan is throwing. Michael King isn't even throwing right now. He's in a quote unquote holding pattern, whatever the hell that means.
Yeah, we talked about that.
And so like, yeah, and then you think about it, it's like, okay, well, you have to have hitters on your bench. So in an NFBC format, you can maybe skew a little pitcher heavy to make up for the fact that you have one pitcher in an IL spot that's not an IL spot. But you can't add as many pitchers as you would normally. So you miss adding, Chris Bubic after one start or whatever it was. Yeah. Like Matthew Boyd, when you're like, hey, Matthew Boyd actually looks kind of good, but I can't pick him up and see because I have McClanahan on my bench, and like I would love having Matthew Boyd on a 15-team league right now. But you miss those gambles in the first few weeks of the season.
Yeah, and then like if you have a lot of splits hitters, guys you can only play versus righties, or just guys you have to mix and match in your lineup. You really have to set yourself up to like where you don't have any of those kind of guys, where you have the whole bench that you can stash all these pitchers, because you're explaining exactly what I'm talking about. And that's why I say when there's different types of risks, there's injury risk, there's performance risks. Well, if you have too many injury risks, several of them go on the IL at the same time. And then on top of that, you could have other guys who you weren't expecting to get injured also get hurt and go on the IL. And then what are you going to do with all these guys? So that's why it's so important to kind of take your shots very, lightly. Like, okay, maybe one guy, maybe only one guy late. I'll stash him and see if he comes back quickly. And if not, I move on. I should have moved on from Manaea when he had the setback. Honestly, that was a mistake. But yeah, it's the opportunity cost, which you're finding out as you go along here. And in 15-team leagues, it's so hard to manage that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Let's continue on with rundowns as we got Eric here, and I'm pretty sure Eric is a Red Sox fan.
I am. Yeah, that's me.
So Roman Anthony called up. How excited are you about this?
I'm excited. I mean, it's hard to be excited after just watching how that game ended. But yeah, I'm excited. I think I'm also just kind of like, it's just a deep breath of relief that I don't have to read nonsense on Twitter all the time about why Roman Anthony isn't up. It was just weeks and weeks of like, just put Rafaela at second base. Roman Anthony should be up. It's like, yes, let's take the guy with the third most defensive runs saved in all of baseball and just say, hey, let's go play this other position that you haven't played in 3 years, even though you were terrible at shortstop last year. And that'll make our team better. But yeah, I think Roman Anthony, listen, no hits today, but he got one hit because he hit Shane Baz with 111 mile-an-hour comebacker right up the middle, which, because of the way the Red Sox season has gone, bounced immediately to Junior Caminero to be thrown out at first base. But he had some good at bats too. He worked a walk late in the game where he was like laying off some good pitches. I think Roman Anthony is going to be a really good, I think he's going to be a really good player. Obviously, I think he's in for a good rookie year. I think rookie years in general, nowadays, I think we should expect roller coasters. And I think there's going to be some hot stretches, and I think there's going to be some cool stretches. We're kind of seeing it with Christian Campbell. Like, Christian Campbell had a great April, and he had a terrible May, and he's back to having a decent June. And, Roman Anthony has way more minor league track record than Christian Campbell. But I think there's still going to be some of that. And then, look, he got pinch hit for in the 11th inning for Ref Snyder. And like, that's what Ref Snyder is on the team to do, hit lefties. Yep. And so Cora is going to do that sometimes. And so that's going to be a frustrating thing for people with Roman Anthony as well. But, I also didn't, I don't know if you guys chatted about this earlier. Like, I never saw Wilyer Abreu get hurt. I never read anything about Wilyer Abreu getting hurt. There was never anything other than, hey, this guy isn't really hitting well. And now all of a sudden he's got an oblique injury.
Oh, you think maybe a phantom instead of, you don't think he actually has an oblique maybe?
I mean, I'm never going to like accuse teams of that.
I'll do it.
And also, I think, as we know, like, players play through injuries all the time in the course of a long season. Like, he could very well be battling something that he would normally be playing through. And they're like, dude, just take a few weeks. It's fine. Like, we'll get Roman up. We'll figure out what the next move is.
I think with the rumors that they might be looking to trade him at the deadline, I don't know that they would want him to go on the IL for a phantom injury. I think they'd want him to be considered completely healthy, so that way, and maybe it's a matter of like, hey, he was dealing with something that he'd normally play with, but because they want to trade him, they're like, hey, we need you to be healthy to have the best opportunity to get you in a place where you're going to play every day.
Well, I was also thinking because he's so good defensively that they wouldn't want him off the field. That was my thought.
I think they're more likely to trade Duran personally.
Oh, okay.
He's 3 years older.
Sense. He is the oldest. Yeah, he's the oldest outfielder on their team.
He's 3 years older. Also, Roman Anthony was playing basically exclusively left field in the minor leagues. Abreu obviously was a Gold Glove right fielder. Mm-hmm. And even in a quote unquote down year, I think he's like 5, his outs above average is like 5 or something in right field right now. Like, he is a really good defensive outfielder. Duran had a good defensive season last year. And so I think people are like, hey, this guy's a really good defensive outfielder, or is now a good defensive outfielder. But he's kind of not. Like, he's back to a -2 outs above average. His defensive run saved is very mediocre. He wasn't a really good outfielder before last year. He had a great year last year. And he's under team control through 2028, but they're not going to sign him to an extension. He'll be 31 by the time his pre-arb years run out, or his arbitration years run out. So it's like, are you going to keep paying him what he's going to get in arbitration and keep him under team control, but not have a spot for Roman Anthony and Cedar Rafael and Wilyer Abreu? Or do you move Duran, who's going to get you a haul? Like, I think Duran could get you, with that kind of team control, 3 more years of team control. I think that gets you an interesting package. So I kind of feel like he's the one who's more likely to be traded.
I can see that.
I'd love to. I mean, honestly, the Phillies make a lot of sense
for
because
pitching, or
I think you build it around like, or I think like Mick Abel makes a lot of sense as part of the package coming back to Boston, because he's MLB ready right now, but he's also a young prospect. The Phillies already have a full rotation and have Andrew Painter on the way back as well.
Right.
And I think that the Phillies need to give more, but if the Red Sox get Mick Abel and put him right into the rotation, and then have him under team control for a long time, like that's a really useful piece for Boston, and a piece that the Phillies could easily give up in order to get somebody like Duran. So who knows? But I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know if that's something the Phillies are going to want to do. They seem to really like Brandon Marsh for some reason. And I don't know what, I mean, he's a good defender, but I think he's proven that he's not going to be a difference maker with a bat at all. I think they have other needs that they're going to want to address in Philadelphia.
I mean, you play Duran and left and get rid of Max Kepler.
They just signed Kepler to a $10 million deal, though. I don't think they're. I mean, I guess that's it's a 1 year. I think it's a 1 year deal, right? Am I wrong?
Yeah, I
believe it was a one. I thought it was a 1 year deal. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a 1 year deal. So maybe that is the answer. You put Duran in left. I just think from what it sounds like in terms of the rumors we've heard is that Philadelphia is going to be looking more at bullpen than they're going to be looking at offensive players.
Yeah, the Red Sox can't help you there.
Yeah.
No, they can't.
All right. Next thing on the docket, and since we've got a great pitching mind, this will be a good one for Eric to answer, especially. And since we've got a great injury mind, this is in Dave. This will be a great one for him to answer too. Eury Perez returning from TJ. He had a start tonight, a 2-start week, and start tonight against Pittsburgh, in which he absolutely got shellacked. Through 3 innings, 4 earned runs, 2 walks, 5 Ks. In this, someone went in, so whoever that was can talk about it first. Go ahead.
I did, just on the absolutely shellacked part. I mean, I think like he struck out. He got 6 of the first 7 batters he faced out. I think 5 of them were on strikeouts. 4 of them were on strikeouts. Came out of the gate really hot. First 2 innings looked great. Beginning of the 3rd inning looked great. Rest of the 3rd inning was not great. And I think that's kind of where you're at. Like, I know what Dave's going to say, and I'm with him. Like, Eury Perez is a very talented pitcher. Yes. And I think you're really going to want him on your rosters in 2026. And you may really want him for streaming starts in like August and September.
Yeah.
And so I was okay with like in NFBC formats, like he's not going to be eligible to be added until this weekend. And depending on how he looks over the weekend, like I'd be okay, like throwing some single-digit bids on him in the end of like a quote-unquote waterfall, depending on what the upcoming matchups are. But his ceiling right now is probably 5 innings on one of the worst teams in baseball. And we know that coming off Tommy John, the command is going to be inconsistent to the extent that like he could throw 3 dominant innings and then have 1 terrible inning that torpedo everything. And so like, I really like him as a pitcher, and in deeper formats, I don't mind if you have a very, very low cost chance to throw him on the bench and see how it looks. I just don't think the ceiling is really high right now.
Yeah, I just think it's there's just too many people on Twitter pumping him up, and we've talked about what we talked about earlier with the prospects, that the reason that people get so hyped is because there's all these people covering the minors, like our friend Eric Cross and Chris Clegg, and they do a great job doing that, but they get people super excited for these guys who are crushing in the minors, pitchers and hitters. We see the videos, and videos always make people even more and more excited, and they just get such high expectations. And I just want to remind people that when you haven't pitched in the major leagues, which is different from the minor leagues, in 2 years, there will be an adjustment period. You're not going to come back and be a top 30 pitcher right away. And as Eric said, it could be a point later in the year, come August, September, maybe, where Eury Perez you're really happy to have him on your team and you're streaming him and he's looking good. But I just think that there's going to be more starts like this. There's going to be times where you're frustrated with him. Look at Sandy Alcantara, same thing. They just came back from TJ. This is not the time that I want to have them on my team. But I get it. If you have him, you're gonna want to use him. That's the problem. And kind of like where I disagree with Nick is I look at his he just put out his rankings for this week. He's got Eury Perez 34th.
Well, we just recorded, and he said, he put that out before today's start, and he said basically like, I'm taking a gamble on this right now.
Yes.
Before the start. And Nick now said that he would put him in like the 50s based on how it all went. But yes, Nick is more of the mind that, again, because Nick ranks specifically for 12 teamers, that once you get to a certain point, he would rather say, I'm going to roll the dice on somebody who would give me the upside if it hits. And so, sure, if you're going to put Eury Perez in the 50s in a 12-team league where like most of those guys outside of the top 50 starting pitchers in a 12-team league are guys that you're probably rotating on and off of your roster, depending on where you're at. But I wouldn't have ranked him that high.
Right. When you have him at 34, though, we're not talking about, okay, you're
yes.
The guys below him are just kind of guys. I'm talking guys who are mainstays. I mean, Pepio, Pavetta, Will Warren, Matthew Boyd, Merrill Kelly, Tanner Bybee, all these guys are ranked below him, and there's no way in hell. I mean, even before the start, because I just wanted to be clear, I was saying all this about Eury Perez before his debut, before he actually had the bad start today, so I would not have had him in my top 70 coming in. So I'm just saying we need to take a step back, stop being so hyped on both young players and players coming off of injuries, and be more realistic and rank them where we can still actually have value from them and stop overrating these guys.
Yeah, I think it is the tough decision of understanding the true talent of a player and saying, hey, if I could get a player with that kind of upside on my roster, especially if your pitching has been ravaged, right? Maybe you had a really rough go. And realistically, there is not going to be a pitcher more talented than Eury Perez who's going to be available on waivers for the rest of the season. But his true talent as a pitcher is very different than the fantasy value that you're going to get from him. And that's where you have to do that math of like, yes, maybe I do want to roll the dice because if I get something close to that true talent, it's really valuable. But then it's like, what is the likelihood that I actually
get that?
Yeah. And listen, we know what's going to happen because he's going to face Washington later in the week and he's going to like strike out 8 in 5 innings and allow 1 run, and people are going to go crazy for him on that.
I hope he does. I honestly hope people spend all their fab money on him because I'm gonna give you guys a comp from last season, right? There was a player who returned from Tommy John halfway through the season last year. He threw 7 starts, which was 30.2 innings.
Was it Robbie Ray?
In his time. It was Robbie Ray. You absolutely nailed it before he even got to finish. Had a 4.70 ERA. there were moments where Robbie Ray looked like the elite pitcher we've seen this year.
Right.
And then moments where he couldn't find the zone or he couldn't command it in the zone.
So
and I think that's what you have to expect from a guy like Eury this year. I agree. Next year, I'll be
that's
all
what I'm saying. You heard it here. Eury Perez, top 15 starter next year, 2026.
I'm on board. I mean, I'm not drafting him 15th, but I'm very much on board with Eury Perez next year. Absolutely.
I'll draft him exactly where I drafted Robbie Ray this year. Right?
Ooh, that's high. Well, I don't know where you drafted him, but he went real high in mains.
I can't remember where I got him. But like, I mean, I know in like Towers, like I got him for, I don't know, like $12 or something like that. Like, so I could actually look that up and see what I got him for. But like, I mean, that you should be letting other people pay the money for this year on Eury, and then hope that he just does a Robbie Ray, has a 4.70 ERA. People aren't willing to push him up into the top 30 of starters. And then you grab him, and I think Eury will be a top 25 starter next year.
So then, Dave, let me follow up with something, because you were talking about prospects and guys coming off of injury, and obviously Eury Perez coming off of injury. If Bubba Chandler gets the call, right, he's probably the best pitching prospect we will see get the call this year.
Do you think he's better than Chase Burns? I'm not sure.
I don't think we see Chase Burns pitch meaningfully.
I don't think Burns is coming. I think Burns comes up in September.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if he comes, I do too. I think he comes up in September, maybe for a couple.
Okay.
But so how likely are you to gamble on somebody like Bubba Chandler, where we've seen an extensive track record of success in the minor leagues, but it's the minor leagues?
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, I think it's an easier transition sometimes for pitchers than it is for hitters.
For sure.
It seems like. I drafted Bubba Chandler on one of my main events because I thought he would be up by early May. But here we are in early to mid-June, and he's still not up. And now that they're going on a road trip, it seems like they're probably not going to bring him up for a road game, right? Like they're probably waiting for a home game. So it's probably going to be now like, another 2 weeks before he's up. So I don't have the money, Eric. I'm not good at managing my budget. So I don't have the money to spend on a Bubba Chandler, but I am holding him still in one main event where I drafted him.
I don't have the money either, because I placed some triple-digit bids on Jac Caglianone thinking I wouldn't get him, and then I got him because he had a bad first week, and I'm like, okay, I guess we're gonna pinch pennies the rest of the year.
Yeah, and I think I don't know if you guys asked this earlier or someone in the chat, but when it comes to like triple-digit bids, I find I'm best when I just don't. Oh, it was Eric Halterman. Yeah. And he said, do you place aggressive bids on these guys anyway, just in case, or do you actually use all $1,000 on smaller pickups? I find for me, I'm at my best when I'm not making really any triple digit bids. Like I am really good with the $20 to $80 bids. And I usually find several big hits in that range. Most of the times when I bid 100 to 200, and I really almost never bid over like 200, 250. I can't remember a single time I've bid $300 plus. I don't think I have. Maybe, but they don't work out because like the types of guys you're bidding on are too unknown of a quantity. You know, like when Clark Olson won the main event last year, he picked up Blake Snell, I think for like $300 or something, or $400 or something like that. That's a known quantity though, right? Like we know Blake Snell. We know that he has the possibility to come up and be a Cy Young caliber pitcher. We don't know with any of these guys that they can do that. So I think if I were going to spend that much money, it would have to be on a known quantity to do that.
I agree with you. I usually don't go triple digits on a lot, on many. I did on Caglianone mainly because I had a power need on a lot of teams, on the teams I went for him. And again, one of the leagues I got him, I actually kept swinging and missing on guys. So I had like $580 still left. So like $170 bid in that situation to me didn't feel super aggressive.
Yeah.
And then the other place I got him in, I put a bid that was like, I think it was like 109 or something like that. And it was kind of like, to me, that didn't seem that egregious based on how he was hitting the ball in that first stretch. I thought the exit velocities were pretty good, and I needed power, and I went for it.
12 or 15?
That was a 12. The 171 was in a 15.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that's too much money. It just depends on how well you can balance. And I know, budget your money, and I know that I'm not good at that, so I try to not put myself in that position.
I've learned this year I'm terrible at the low bids because I get the amount of times I've bid like $8 on somebody with no backup, and it happens all the time where I'm like. Where my like, hey, I'd like to get this guy, but I don't want to put a big bid, but I don't want to be $1 because somebody else might be $2.
Yeah.
And so I go to like 7 or 8 and then nobody else bids. And if you do that once or twice, it's like, okay, not a big deal. When you're doing that like all season long, all of a sudden you're just bleeding.
But that's
like
fine.
Money every time.
I mean, like that's fine. Like I think that it doesn't feel good when that happens. Like I can't remember who the player was I bid on, and I bid like $85 and the backup bid was like $17 or something like that. And like in the moment I went, oh shit, I could have saved myself $64 or whatever it was. But ultimately, if you're getting the player that you want and he returns the value of what you spent, it doesn't really matter. It just hurts in that moment that you could have extracted more, especially when we're talking about like a $7 bid, because I do that all the time. Like I typically bid in increments of $3 or $7. And
that's kind of what I do too.
Yeah, because most people want to bid in increments of 0, 5, right?
Yeah.
Like, $10 or $5. And so the smart people will go, well, I'll just do 6 or 1.
Not in
and
high
I'll beat those other people.
You're not
I think if I'm like a psychiatrist, my favorite number is 21, and probably there's just a part of my brain that's like just doing 3s and 7s because of some random connection to that. I couldn't tell you.
The other thing I try to do is I try to like look back at what everybody's most common bids are, and then I try to go $1 more, especially at this point in the season because you have a track record of that. But at the end of the day, like if you're leaving $5 on the table every week, it's really not gonna kill you too much
unless you're hitting every week.
And I mean, especially if you're hitting on those bids, like if you're getting guys that then I mean, obviously it didn't work out super well for me tonight, but like for instance, the closer for the Cubs, like I overbid on him a little bit, but I got the closer for the Cubs right now, and he's been really, really good and so far worth the money. So am I really that upset? No, I'm totally fine. In the moment it sucked, but I left, $30 on the table or whatever it was when I got him. But like don't think of, I think that is overthinking it. Like, I'm not very good. No, if you're getting the guys and they're returning the value, then you are good.
Hey, thanks, Justin. Bailey Falter, let's pay off my $7 bid.
There you go.
Oh, that's who you're bidding $7 on. Please tell me that was a 15 and not a 12.
That was actually in turf where I'm trying to turn over this entire rotation, this garbage rotation, and I'm like picking up the Bailey Falters of the world for this week and thinking I just gotta get through until something pops. So
but for me, in terms of like, I'm the guy who says like don't do the triple digit bids. And then I do the triple digit bids. I never listen to my own advice.
Justin, I'm like more impressed when you bid on the correct players. So, I didn't want to see you bidding on Matt Festa this year.
Matt Festa.
No, I did not make that mistake. Oh my God. There was someone earlier in the season that bid on someone. And I think we even talked about it. I can't remember who it was.
Who did you bid on
last
year with this? It wasn't even the same name, I don't think. Like, I can't even remember what you did, but who was the guy that you bid on last year that you were?
I don't think it wasn't me. It was somebody else. But
it was you. It was.
I don't think I did it.
You.
Did I?
Yes.
Last year?
Yeah, it was.
I'd have to go and look.
It was a big bid, and you bid on the wrong dude. And I'm pretty sure it wasn't even the same name of the guy, like Festa. I was like, "What the fuck did you do?" And you were like, "I don't know."
Oh no. Okay, so it wasn't the wrong guy. I believe it was Tristan McKenzie.
No.
And
Nick Allen, is that it? Someone put that in the chat. Did you bid on Nick Allen instead of someone else? No.
I don't think
thought it was
so. I could be
something like
wrong.
that.
I had so many teams last year.
Last year I bid on
Maybe
the
it's
wrong.
possible.
We talked
Last
about
year
it.
I bid on the wrong Logan Allen last year.
Well, there is no correct Logan Allen.
Well, that's true, but it was like a streaming. It was like a streaming thing. Also, they're both left-handed pitchers, which is like, come on.
No, I know. We had
That's
both
just
of them at the same time. We had both Logan S. Allen and Logan T. Allen on the Guardians at the same fucking time.
Yeah,
it's absurd.
On that note, I am gonna leave you guys for the evening. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Hope I didn't sidetrack the rundown far too much.
Thanks for joining us.
You did, but we love you.
Yeah, well, I'll listen. Well, I'll come back and do it again the next time.
All right, we'll have a tighter script.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, let me know. Have a good one, guys.
All right, buddy. Later.
Take care, brother. All right, let's keep it moving. We only got a couple more news items. We're already an hour in, so we may cut this episode and then start a new episode here in a minute.
What you gotta do?
Hunter Greene is getting a second opinion.
No,
that's never good.
You missed two. Wait, no, you missed Zebby.
No, Zebby's next. Zebby's after Hunter. Oh, did you change the order?
Oh, okay, you're good. Yeah, I was just putting all the prospects together. Sorry, go ahead. All right, Hunter Greene.
Sorry. Hunter Greene getting a second opinion. That's never good, right?
Yeah, second opinions rarely go well. We'll say. To be fair, it's not an arm injury. But the fact that he's getting another opinion tells me that this is probably more serious than you'd want to hear, especially since it's a reoccurring groin injury. And now they're also talking about a back injury on top of that. So I would say expect to be without him for at least a month, is my guess.
Yeah, you're holding on to him for right now until you get more information. But yeah, this is never. I think. Yeah. Eric says, who hasn't asked for a second opinion on their groin at some point? This is very true. I love it.
Justin and I do a groin check every time before we hop on the pod. So we're with you.
You have to. You got to stay safe, right?
Gotta have a system.
Zebby Matthews going to the IL. David Festa is expected to get recalled. I don't know if they've officially announced it, but I believe he should be coming up for a start versus Texas. Are you holding on to Zebby, and are you picking up David Festa?
I think Zebby's out for a while, right? Wasn't it bad?
It sounded like, I think, a shoulder issue. I don't think they have a timetable on it yet.
I thought I remembered seeing something. Oh, shoulder strain. A strain is likely going to be, I would say, 3 months. So I think this is along the same timeline as Pablo Lopez. I think he's definite drop because he was, and he's not Pablo Lopez. Like, he doesn't have that talent level where you should be, trying to hold on to him at all costs. And don't hold on to Pablo either, by the way. So David Festa. Is there anybody harder to trust? I mean, the guy looks so good in the minors, comes up and just gets walloped all the time. And on top of that, they have a manager who rarely lets him go beyond 4 1/3 or maybe 4 2/3 on his birthday.
Yeah.
But fuck, dude, what am I going to do with that? I he's a guy I don't even want to bid on him. I really don't. If he's available anywhere, I don't even want to bother.
I picked him up in a few leagues this week, mostly because his start is against Texas, who's been one of the worst teams offensively in baseball. And so I was willing to take the risk and kind of see, especially because it wasn't very expensive. But I think your second point about they won't let him go to turn that lineup over twice is the really big part of this. Because if he can't see more than 18 batters, the chances that you're going to get through 5 innings is really, really small. Now, on the plus side, they were like that with Zebby when Zebby first came up, and then they eventually allowed him to start going deeper, but then Zebby got hurt. So I don't know what they're going to do with Festa. I think you're going week to week with him right now and kind of watching and seeing. I write an article every week for Fantasy Pros, which is 20 things to watch, and one of the things I put on there was what is the workload going to be like for David Festa? Because he has an electric arm. I think he's going to be really good. I'm not worried about the struggles in his first few go-arounds. Like we said, there is an adjustment period for a lot of prospects coming up. I think he is going to be a good pitcher, but we need to see how Minnesota will treat him. Rocco Baldelli has not been kind in terms of letting guys go.
Well, I guess the other question is, can their pen even handle that? Like, they might have to let him go more than like at least 5, because like they don't have Pablo there anymore. They've got Joe Ryan, who's really good. Bailey Ober can give you innings, but then Paddock and Simeon Woods Richardson, I don't think you can, rely on those guys for 6+ innings every time out. So I think you're going to have to maybe try to let Festa go because of their bullpen not being able to pick up that much slack.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting to watch Simeon Woods Richardson start tomorrow and see how long they let him go. Do they let him wear a bad outing, or do they bring the bullpen in early? Because if they bring the bullpen in early, then they may have to give Festa a little bit more length here. Either way, I'd be starting Festa this week because it's Texas.
I would not, but I understand the thought.
All right. I will text you Wednesday night. We'll see how it worked out. All
right. Unless I text you first.
Maybe I'll be begging for your you to forgive me for my trespasses.
Maybe.
All right. So what we're gonna do real quick is we're gonna end this episode. I'm gonna post it as his own, but Dave and I are gonna just jump right back on a new stream. So if you're watching this live, which about 18 people are right now, just come back in like 2 minutes and there'll be a new stream to follow. But that way I don't have to try to break up 4 hours worth of episodes in one going, because it feels like a night where we may be going like 3 or 4 hours. So
could be, but hey, we haven't done this in a few months, so I feel like it's all right to do that the first time back.
Yeah, I'll get my writing done tomorrow.
Now, do I have to leave and come back on, or do I just stay here?
You are. I'm gonna send you a new link.
Damn it. All right.
Remind everybody where you can reach on social media and plug anything you got going on.
Shut up, Eric.
Eric says most efficient pod in the biz.
I love you, but shut up. So that's on Twitter. You can find me at RunDMCD, and you gotta add that D.
All right. You can follow me on any social media platform, Justin Mason FWFB. You can read all my written work at Fangraphs and Fantasy Pros and hear me on this podcast and the Sleeper and the Bus podcast. That will wrap us up for this episode. We'll be right back for those of you watching live, which you can always do on my YouTube. And I'll see you guys here in a few minutes.
All right.